On episode 7 of Office Hours with Dr. Guy, we talk about time, alignment, surveys, and how to get me to speak to your college for free. Bring your questions to Office Hours with Dr. Guy. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 7 of Office Hours with Dr. Guy. I am so excited that it is Monday and I am here with you again. Big changes are on the way. I know I keep teasing that for the last few episodes. Just want to say that we got some great stuff coming for you. And so watch episode 8, 9 in the coming episodes just to see what I'm talking about, and you will be very happy that you do in a timely fashion. My whole hope about these episodes is that some kind of habit is building, perhaps, where you're watching these regularly, and therefore you're thinking about your dissertation or your master's thesis more often. So that way, you're thinking about this project. They say, out of sight, out of mind, and if it's out of sight, out of mind, you're not making progress. And so this show is one way that you can keep things in mind and keep your dissertation or master's thesis in sight. There's some of you master's thesis people watching this show. I didn't expect that. You're surprising me. So dissertation people, we got some masters among us, so I want to welcome them. Let's get into your questions. Dennis asks, how many hours should I dedicate to my dissertation each day? How many hours should I dedicate to reading? Writing? Dennis, thank you. You are probably echoing the question that so many people, well, you are echoing the question that so many people are posting in the comments section, because this is probably one of the most important questions that we can cover here on this show. Number one, how much time should you dedicate? Well, everyone works at a different speed. There's people in the gym right now, they're trying to be bodybuilders, they're trying to be professional bodybuilders, and so how much time do they need to spend in the gym? They need to spend, probably 5, 6, 7 hours a day in the gym, I'm imagining. And there's other people that are just trying to get their heart rate up every day for a little bit, and they move a little bit at a slower pace. Chances are they're not going to hit that professional bodybuilder level, but they're headed at least in a fit direction. And I guess what I'm trying to say with that metaphor is if you're trying to finish this thing fast and well, then most likely you need to be spending, I would say, approximately, this is going to scare people, all your time, like 30, 40 hours a week on this project until it's finished. Now, a lot of people that are watching this are thinking, what, 30, 40 hours? That's just not possible. You know what? You're right. For most people, it's probably not possible. But if you're one of those people that can take a vacation, a leave of absence, a sabbatical, if you're in between jobs and you're already going to have some open time, there you go. If there's some way you can finagle getting extra time, that's the way to do it. But for most of you, for most people watching this who can't swing 30 or 40 hours, what I would say is, typically 2 hours a night, 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week, and then on Saturday or whatever your weekend flex day is, 8 straight hours without fail. And this is the importance of having a dissertation space, a place that's dedicated solely to your dissertation project. Renting out a local business suite for, I don't know what, Dennis, I don't know where you are, but for here, at least for people here in the state of California, $300, $400 US is typically what someone would pay for per month for a small closet in an office somewhere to get their work done. And I would strongly advise doing that for anyone that wants to get away and make a lot of progress fast. But more to the point, you asked about reading and writing. Well, there's a workflow that needs to be achieved inside this project. Reading tasks and writing tasks need to be completely separate. And the reason for that is the same reason that imagine you're at work and every time you're trying to get started on some project on your computer, someone pops in and starts talking to you. Hey, Dennis, how you doing? Hey, can I ask you this question? Hey, you're not going to make a lot of progress very fast because the gears keep switching. So you want to keep your reading tasks and your writing tasks entirely separate. And the way to do that is, number one, spend some time getting the sources. Let that be your only task for that moment. Online, ordering them through interlibrary loan. Books are golden. Getting articles in, downloading them, full text, PDFs, that kind of thing. That's one task. Second task is receiving them, as in getting the books, printing out the articles themselves if you're a printer, or organizing them, right? The next task itself is actually sitting down, really closely leafing through the book itself, and then pulling out 5 to 10 quotes per source, and then saying, you know what, that's enough for the source, and I'm going to move on. A common question that I get is where do I put that information? Well, once you are reading the source and you see something that's worthwhile, you're putting it into your synthesis matrix, and then from there, once you have yourself, a good 3 to 500 direct quotes, what you can then do is you can organize that. Check back on episode 6 for how to do that, and then you can actually start writing your literature review. So how much time reading and writing? Well, in the end, probably 20% of your time is going to be used for reading, 80% is going to be used for the writing, but when we talk about the literature review, it's kind of deceptive because, as a whole dissertation, 20% is going to be your reading time, 80% is going to be the writing time. But when it comes to your lit review, it's actually reversed. 80% of your time is spent reading and inputting into a synthesis matrix, and then from there, only 20% of your time is used writing because you have everything organized. So long story short, Dennis, get yourself an office space that will allow you to focus solely on your dissertation. Dedicate yourself to getting in that space for at least 1-2 hours a day, every single day. And then on the weekend, get in there for 8 hours, working 45, breaking 15, working 45, breaking 15. And that will make significant progress in your dissertation. Dennis. Yolanda asks, how do I find a survey instrument for my dissertation? Yolanda, welcome to the show. Thank you for your online comments. Finding a survey instrument is the secret juice of one's dissertation. It's part of the fast track. Step 1 of the fast track is getting a great purpose statement. We've covered that in previous episodes. Number 2, after you've gotten a great purpose statement, it's choosing your theoretical framework. I think that was on episode 1 that we talked about that. So purpose statement, theoretical framework. Then, now that you know who and what you're looking at, where and when, and you have a theoretical framework that has some lenses, right, to actually look at this problem, this specific problem that you're focusing upon, your survey instrument needs to be a survey instrument that's compatible with this theoretical framework that you've selected. And the reason I bring up the theoretical framework is that some theoretical frameworks have survey instruments that are really closely aligned to that framework. For example, the Full Range of Leadership model by Bass is very closely aligned to the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire, the MLQ. And so if you are looking at something through the lens of transformational, transactional, laissez-faire leadership, through the Full Range of Leadership model, the MLQ instrument is very useful in that. And so if you can find a survey instrument that is already pre-arranged, pre-existing, that's the way to go. That's number 1. Now, reading into your question here, you might be doing more of like a case study or a phenomenological study, and because of that, you might be doing some sort of interview or survey instrument. Let me get interviews out of the way really fast. Interviews, awesome. Don't discount the power of an interview. In fact, if you're looking to finish your dissertation and finish it well, interviews often are one of the best ways by which to go about doing that because you're going to get a wealth of data from interviews. I mean, think about it. If someone sat down with you and you knew for a fact you're going to be sitting with them for about 30 minutes to an hour's time, the interview is going to have a lot of wealth of information. The person that is speaking is going to have much to say because they know that they're sitting down for this block of time to solely dedicate towards this project. But if it's just a survey, what typically, I mean, think about how do you interact with a survey? I mean, imagine you got a survey in your mailbox today. How much time would you dedicate to someone else's survey instrument if you were not a doctoral candidate? So as you can see, a survey can be a bit of a challenge. You're not going to get necessarily a lot of useful data. Well, you will get useful data out of it, but you might not get the response rate you're looking at, which is one of the chief problems of survey instruments, is getting that response rate. So back to survey instruments. How do you create a survey instrument? Well, this is tricky because every single question on a survey instrument, if you design it, needs to be based upon some sort of look into the literature and the literature's justification of what we should be looking at. What does that mean? Well, if you look in the chapter 5 of most people's dissertations, they have a list of recommendations for research and recommendations for practice. If you look at the end of many journal articles, you're going to see many recommendations that have been posted by the researchers. It's those recommendations that guide us to asking questions in our survey instrument. So it's interesting because a lot of doctoral candidates don't know about this, is that one of the chief things you're looking for is the recommendations of other researchers when you're doing your reading. So that way you can justify the study that you're doing in your literature review, and you can justify the interview questions that you're asking through your literature review. So what I'm trying to tell you is find those recommendations that are being posed by others, and make sure that you're addressing questions, the survey instrument questions are directly interacting with those, unless you're using a pre-existing survey instrument, one that's been used and validated before. Lastly, one thing I do want to say in terms of survey instruments is really, if you're looking to fast track, the best way to go about things is to use a survey instrument that pre-exists and one that's been heavily validated and deemed reliable already. So that way you're not statistically having to go through a mess just to prove that this survey that you're using is worth its salt. Step 1, purpose statement. Step 2, awesome theoretical framework. Step 3, find other people that have created, find people that have created survey instruments based upon that theoretical framework already, and then see if you really need to make one yourself. And Rochelle asks, can you speak directly to what the central phenomena is? And Rochelle, thank you for your comments online. Yeah, the central phenomenon. In phenomenology, one of the most misunderstood brands of research out there, phenomenology specifically is looking for an understanding of a well-defined, this is my understanding, it's the understanding of a well-defined process like childbirth. And so if you think about childbirth, there are different stages of childbirth. Every woman who goes through childbirth most likely is going to travel along a very similar path of childbirth. You know, babies don't leap out of tummies. They don't miraculously, teleport themselves into the operating room or the hospital room, even though we might hope that they would. And there's a path, there's a defined path. So first of all, when we're using phenomenology as our method, we have to ask ourselves the very blunt question, does this relate to an actual well-defined process? And many times the answer is no. And if the answer is no, if you're not talking about a well-defined process, then chances are you're using the wrong methodology, and you might want to consider a case study or some other similar methodology. But if you can say, yes, this is a well-defined process, then what you need to look for then is, so it's a well-defined process, and the central phenomena is just simply, when all these people talk about this thing, what do they say and what's in common with what they're saying? So that's why having a well-defined process is so important when we're talking about phenomenology, is because we need people to be talking about the same thing. For example, for people that are in the teacher credentialing world in the state of California, people that have been credentialed as teachers pretty much all went through the same process of becoming teachers if they were, inducted in the last, 15 or 20 years. The process was very similar. So I could talk to many educators about what their teacher induction process was like. But if I was to talk about teaching strategies inside the classroom, that is how teachers teach, that's not much of a well-defined process. And that's more of a case study, probably more of an area that we discuss in the case study. So you got to ask yourself, in my study, are we discussing a well-defined process? And don't fool ourselves into thinking that maybe it's a weak process, but I'm going to make it in my mind a very well-defined process. It should be really on paper very clear. Step 1, step 2, step 3. This is what people go through as they go through this. So that way, when you're talking to people about this phenomena, you can actually ask them about these individual stages. What I also want to add, and Rochelle, is that there are many books that are written about the subject, and one needs to get their hands on at least 3 master texts about the methodology that they have chosen. So if you're doing a case study, you need 3 books on a case study. If you're doing phenomenology, you need 3 books on phenomenology. If you're doing a certain brand of quantitative study, then yes, you need to go find 3 books about that brand of quantitative study. So that way, in your chapter 3, you can be referencing all those and showing how you based all your decisions about constructing this study based upon those books. And also at the same time, you need to be able to have the firm understanding of what this thing is that you're about to do, because you might not want to do it if you knew all that was required of you. For example, a lot of people don't realize in phenomenology that most interviews are going to be upwards of 30 or 40 minutes. These are very intimate, in-depth interviews, and you have to do a lot of them. So a lot of people don't want to go do that. So take a look at those books, and Rochelle, and thanks for your question. Chuck asks, how do I align my background, purpose, problem, and research questions? Chuck, thank you for your question. Very few doctoral candidates are professional writers, and that is one of the biggest difficulties that so many doctoral candidates face when they write their dissertation. Sure, they can write a 5-page paper. Yes, they can write a 10-page. They can even write a 30-page paper. But when we're talking about the total story arc that has to take place over a 200 to 400-page dissertation, then man, that can be exceptionally difficult. So let's talk first about Chapter 1, which is your question. Chapter 1, basically, is simply, in my opinion, a 20-sentence story. Now, there's a lot of paragraphs, so let me talk about this. If you were to go into a book, a well-designed nonfiction book, and you read just the first sentences of every paragraph of a nonfiction book, I have a feeling you'd still be able to follow the basic logic of that chapter just by looking at the first sentences. Quite similarly, what I would ask you to go do, Chuck, is go to a Microsoft Word document outside your dissertation, and I want you to write yourself 20 sentences. The last sentence, number 20, is your purpose statement. If you don't have a purpose statement yet, stop this video, go write yourself a purpose statement based upon what I've talked about in my previous videos, and then from there, come back to your Word document. Last sentence, sentence 20, is your purpose statement. Sentence 1 is a statement by President Soever about some situation, President whoever, naming about some general situation that exists in the world. All right. Your first 1 to 10 sentences are going to be about the general situation in the world, about this thing that you're going to focus upon. And your goal in those 10 sentences is to narrow us down to a general problem. So sentence 8, 9, or 10 somewhere is going to actually say a general problem is, and you're going to name a general problem that exists in the world. So maybe, for example, you're talking about the lack of training for high school principals, potentially. And you just say something like, presidents, whoever, said, principals are the most important person on the campus, or something like that. And then the next sentence 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are basically you telling us more about this situation. Who is the principal? What's going on with the principal? What does the principal do? What does the principal go through to become a principal? How are they trained? And then finally, what's a general problem that is revealed through us discussing those? So the first 10 sentences are narrowing us from that opening sentence down to a general problem. Sentences 11, 12, 13, and 14 are us talking about that general problem. What are some pieces of that general problem? We're getting even more specific. And then the last sentence there, the last sentence of sentence number 12, is you naming a specific problem, or sentence 15, or whatever number we're on. Basically, it goes from the first sentence to a general problem, and then finally we talk about the general problem, then we name a specific problem, and then the problem statement section is actually quite easy. It's only 3 paragraphs. There's 3 sentences that you'll write. It's going to be you writing what we know, what we don't know, and what researchers are asking us to know, And then notice that then the last sentence then of our 20-sentence sequence is the purpose statement that you've named. So sentence 19, the one where you say, what researchers want us to know, that's justifying the purpose statement itself. It's almost like, ta-da, therefore, researchers are asking us to ask these questions, therefore we're going to do this study named by this purpose statement. So in general, Chuck, that's a very, I typically don't give that sort of instruction here via video like this, at least without a visual. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you or whoever's watching this to think this might be useful. If you're having a problem with Chapter 1, is go into a Microsoft Word document, create 20 blank sentences, 20 numbers. And then for number 20, put your purpose statement. For numbers 19, 18, and 17, that's going to be your problem statement section. It's and then back from there, is your background section. And then when numbers 1 through 10 is just your introduction, most likely. And so what you want to be able to do is tell the story of your Chapter 1 just in 20 clean sentences. And once you can talk about your Chapter 1 in 20 clean sentences, I have a feeling then you'll be able to attach those sentences to the fronts of paragraphs and write those paragraphs to justify what that statement means. So as you can see, Chuck, what this is about really first is starting uber simple. And to do that, you need a purpose statement. After that, write your 20 sentences, and then you can write your 20 paragraphs. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed episode 7. I immensely did on this beautiful morning, early morning. I think the sun is just coming up. So in general, I think the biggest thing that I want you to know, and what I've been saying over the last 3 videos, is that I am going on tour, live in person, virtually, via recording, many different forms, and I'm looking to speak to different universities and doctoral programs and even learning groups perhaps, if I just know who would like to do that, if you'd like me to come and speak to your group. And the way to do that is to simply just leave me a note in the comments section below about, number 1, a question that you have, and also the contact information of someone that I should be talking to at your university, so that way I can get my information to them. I'm not selling them anything. I am doing this for free because I just love you guys so much. So let me know. I can't go to every place in the whole wide world. I can't do that, but I can definitely see what's possible. So let me know if you'd like me to do that. In the meantime, send me those questions so I can answer them here on the show. Have a great day. Have a great week. Get your writing done. And make sure you subscribe or like this video because I sleep better when I know that people are watching this show.